According to the first partial result published on Thursday, the African National Congress would be topping the polls of this first electoral test for President Cyril Ramaphosa, who tried to inject a new dynamism to his party entangled in corruption. In Togo, the MPs unanimously adopted a law in favor of the limitation of terms of office for the President of the Republic to 5 years renewable ones, and on the voting method to 2 rounds for the presidential election. China and the United States must sign an agreement that is now compromised by the recurring attacks of the American President Donald Trump, who promises to make the Chinese pay big time. These are our top stories. Stay tuned for more details in this newscast. In Ghana, several people suspected of being separatists by police were arrested some 150 kilometers northeast of Accra, the capital of Ghana. They are accused of wanting to declare the independence of the eastern region of the country under the name Western Togoland, according to the police. These men are part of a group known as the Homeland Study Group Foundation, which has also established a local militia. A separatist threat that is also relevant in Cameroon, while the UN High Commissioner for Human Rights, Michelle Bachelet, has just completed a working visit to the country. The UN Security Council calls for a meeting on the case of Cameroon, accused from the majority of observers of politics in the country. The Cameroonian government cries out once again to interference. It's official for Gnassingbé, the Togolese president, will be able to run for another 5-year term in addition to the 2 years already spent as the leader of the country. The Togolese MPs, through a unanimous decision, put an end to the political debate that has lasted for months. The law, which has finally been passed on Wednesday, provides for the limitation of terms of office for the President of the Republic to 5 years, and it can be renewed once. It clearly means that for Gnassingbé, who has been in power since 2005, will be able to run again at the end of his current 5-year term by 2020. Even better, at the end of the current term, the Togolese head of state can run for 2 more terms and remain in power until 2030 if he wishes to. The people's representatives are clear enough. They wish the Togolese and the international community could understand it once and for all. The terms of office spent so far by the president and the one in progress will not be taken into account in the implementation of the new constitutional amendments. It should be noted that 90 out of 91 MPs voted for the passing of this bill, which was twice rejected previously due to lack of a majority to a 4/5 of the MPs. The new amendments also enshrine the 2-round voting system for the election of the President of the Republic, and the mandate of the MPs now gets to 6 years, renewable twice. The African National Congress, the party of late Nelson Mandela, who already has an absolute majority in the outgoing National Assembly, is credited with 55.07% of the votes after counting the ballot from 1/4 of the polling stations. The Democratic Alliance, the main opposition party, came in second with 25.96% of the vote, largely ahead of the Radical Left Party of Fighters for Economic Freedom with 8.28%. The far-right Freedom Front Party remains in 4th place with 3.21%. According to these partial results, that reveal a participation rate of 64.72%, down from the legislative elections of 5 years ago with 73.48%. The main lines of the South African political landscape are not changed. Once elected, the MPs will choose the head of state. If the victory of the African National Congress is confirmed, Cyril Ramaphosa, in power since February 2018, should be taking an oath of office on May 25th. Very confident, the head of state assured on Wednesday that the results of the poll will be a significant encouragement to investors in a country entangled by unemployment, corruption, and poverty. The meeting of the 2 negotiators scheduled for this Thursday in Washington between China and the US promises to be strained. Both parties are expected to finalize a historic trade deal by Friday, but the goal seems already compromised. Since Sunday, America has been increasing attacks against their trading partner, China, accusing the latter of not abiding by its commitment. They threatened to raise from 10 to 25% taxes on 200 billion of the Chinese imported products by this Friday morning. Donald Trump said on Twitter, very happy that these 100 billion in customs duties will fill American coffers. The second step he intends to take is the introduction of tariffs of 25% of the 320 billion imported products not yet overtaxed. Before these new punitive tariffs, the Chinese government remains firm. Moreover, its Ministry of Trade has denied reneging on his words. According to an expert from China, Trump administration realized that the big problem with China is not the laws, but the enforcement of the laws. Considering that the Chinese courts are controlled by the Communist Party, China's big concession on technology transfer is worthless if the enforcement of the laws depends on the goodwill of the political power. Chinese and Americans will resume their tough trade talks this week in Washington, the outcome of which is a heavy burden on global growth. Despite new tariffs on Friday that will hit Chinese products in the United States, the Beijing negotiator Liu He will get to the U.S. capital on Thursday and Friday, according to the Chinese Ministry of Commerce. This announcement immediately relieved the Chinese stock markets, which was hit hard the day before by the announcement of new U.S. trade sanctions. Today, the sanctions between the United States and China are clearly the threat to the global economy, according to the managing director of the International Monetary Fund, Christine Lagarde, from Paris, regretting rumors, tweets, and comments which are not very favorable to an arrangement.
It is the financing that is based on domestic revenue mobilization that has to be improved in many of the low-income developing countries. The second source of financing is going to be a combination of the international institutions, the international donors, and aid as a general bucket, if you will. The third source of financing will have to be the private sector. But clearly, given the magnitude of the amounts that are needed, the three sources of financing will be indispensable. China has just announced that it will apply debt sustainability framework to the countries that are part of the Belt and Road Initiative. We should not expect that a country that was 40 years ago starving is going to adopt mutatis mutandis exactly the same principle just overnight. So this process by which China is coming to the debt sustainability principles is actually to be welcome. Is it the end of a journey? Certainly not from our perspective at the IMF.
The very conduct of the negotiation was uncertain after the unilateral decision by the US President Donald Trump on Sunday to lift tariffs on Chinese products worth $200 billion in annual exports starting May 10th. After legends such as Arnold Palmer and Jack Nicklaus, decorated in 2004 and 2005 by George Walter Bush, and Charlie Seaford, first black to have played the PGA Tour, the men's professional golf circuit, it is the Tiger's turn to receive the distinction. Born of a black father and a Thai mother, a world star in a sport dominated by whites, Tiger Woods has come a long way. The Tiger won his 15th Grand Slam title 11 years after his last crowning. A comeback to the foreground, which the US president did not fail to point out, saying that Tiger Woods has the qualities to embody the American spirit, one that defies the limits and still aspires to greatness.
Today is my privilege to award our nation's highest civilian honor to one of the greatest athletes in the history of sports, Tiger Woods. Joe LaCava. Where's Joe LaCava? Stand up, Joe. It's a good job. Good job. Here, congratulations on receiving the Presidential Medal of Freedom.
The Tiger felt strong emotions after receiving his medal. The American golfer reneged on the difficult moments he spent for several years, including repeated scandals on his descent into hell in sports.
I want to say this has been an unbelievable experience, and to have the support that I've had for all these years, and everyone here has seen and been with me for, some of you for my entire life, and some of you for more than half my life. I've battled. I've tried to hang in there, and I've tried to come back and play the great game of golf again. I've been lucky enough to have had the opportunity to do it again.
Created by John Fitzgerald Kennedy, the Presidential Medal of Freedom honors artists, scientists, sportsmen, philanthropists, and other civilians who have contributed to maintaining peace and the enhancement of culture. Since 1963, it has been given to more than 30 sportsmen. The leaders of the European Championships and several clubs in the European continent earlier this week asked for the opportunity to negotiate with the Union of European Football Associations on the draft reform of the Champions League. According to representatives of the 244 European clubs, this controversial project of the Champions League is likely to become an inner circle in 2024. A circle that would be devoted to the most powerful teams economically. Lars Christer Olsen, president of the Professional Leagues Association, the process for participation in the Champions League must change as domestic competitions must be the basis of international competitions.
But the processes have to change from information to real negotiations. Because we think that we are now in a critical position when it comes to the development of European club football. We really have to negotiate and find solutions. For example, between how we organize the international competitions and how we organize the domestic competitions.
According to several European media reports, the European Football Club Association and its president, Andrea Agnelli, who is also president of Juventus Turin, have put forward their pause in recent weeks in view of projects likely to reduce the risk of profit of the continental giants.
The domestic competitions have to be the basis for international competitions. You should qualify to the international UEFA competitions via the domestic leagues. If you don't do that, it is impossible to keep the interest among the fans.
The new format of the Champions League, challenged by small football associations, would allow the first 5 teams in 4 pools of 8 to directly qualify for the next edition, regardless of their league rankings, with possible playoffs for the 6th and 7th teams. According to the first partial result published on Thursday, the African National Congress would be topping the polls of this first electoral test for President Cyril Ramaphosa, who tried to inject a new dynamism to his party entangled in corruption. In Togo, the MPs unanimously adopted a law in favor of the limitation of terms of office for the President of the Republic to 5 years renewable ones, and on the voting method to 2 rounds for the presidential election. China and the United States must sign an agreement that is now compromised by the recurring attacks of the American President Donald Trump, who promises to make the Chinese pay big time. That's all for our newscast today. Stay tuned on Gabon 24 for more news.